and welcome to This Hope podcast with Fee and Trevor Tucker. You join us live from our car on the school run to collect our kids. But we just want to take a few minutes to introduce you to our guest this week on this episode of the podcast.
I had the absolute joy of chatting with Rachael Newham a couple of weeks ago. Rachael is just an absolute gem, and we had an amazing conversation full of so much wisdom and insight from Rachael on topics such as mental illness, what that means for our faith, and also struggling with our mental health whilst also parenting. So be great for you to grab a cup of tea and check out this conversation.
Yeah, and guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this podcast just to help us get out there, but also it just helps us with visibility for others to find us easier. Also, if you want to buy us a coffee, we'll put a link for that in the show notes as well. It just helps a little bit just to keep this podcast going, and we can carry on bringing you amazing guests and interviews like we have been. But for now, thank you so much. You're all amazing, and enjoy this week's episode.
We're so excited to have you on, and particularly just to hear your story, but also talk about all your books, which I personally love. But first, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I am an Essex girl originally.
Are you?
Yeah, and I am now a wife of one, a mum of one, which means there are a lot of boys in my house.
Yeah.
And I have a job that I feel is quite unique to the evangelical world.
Yeah.
Which is like author / writer / sometimes speaker / sometimes just doing random podcasts on a Tuesday morning.
Is it Tuesday?
I think it's Wednesday.
I think the first 2 days of the week don't count because they were so hot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. Definitely.
Amazing. I would like your job. I think those are all the things that I like to do. To be able to just make them into...
It is a fun job. It's not a particularly reliable job, but it is a very fun job.
Yeah, it's all right. And you, in your sort of bios about yourself, you say you're a theology of mental health
specialist. Yeah, because I have a mishmash of a job, I had to kind of give myself a job title, and theology of mental health specialist kind of encompasses everything, because most stuff I do is around what the Bible has to say about mental health and, well, probably more specifically mental illness. Mm-hmm. So that's how I ended up with that. It sounds a lot more impressive than it is, but I quite enjoy it as a job title.
I love it. I like to call myself chief storyteller.
Oh, that's an excellent job title.
I like telling stories to make whatever the point is that I'm trying to make. So
that's nice.
Why can I not be? It's like creative director, chief storyteller.
When you're self-employed, there are a lot of downsides, but an upside is you get to pick your own job title.
It's so good. So, could you just share with us your story? How did you become a theology of mental health specialist? And just, talk to us about how you got here.
Yeah. Wow. Sometimes I think that I became a theology of mental health specialist because God has a really good sense of humour. When I kind of always knew that I wanted to work in the Christian world doing stuff with the Bible and talking about Jesus. That was the plan from when I was 5, basically. Then I wanted to be a missionary in Rwanda. Then I realised that Rwanda's really quite far away. And I don't like hot weather. And so that meant I then thought I would be a Baptist minister. Mm-hmm. That's what I kind of assumed I'd be for between the ages of about 6 and probably 20. Yeah. And then when I was at uni, I went to Bible college and I started a mental health charity. Well, again, sounds much grander than it actually is. I started a blog because it was 2010, and that's what we did in 2010.
A good vlog, yeah.
And I also started running, it was called Mental Health Prayer, very imaginatively, at LST, but I was writing content about different mental health conditions every week. And then I developed it basically into a course that churches could have me come and run on a Saturday. And I did that for 10 years. And kind of alongside other jobs. So I worked for some charities I worked for a self-harm charity for a year, and I worked for, I ran a mentoring project for young women, just lots of things that were vaguely associated with Jesus and mental health, basically. And it came all from this place that I developed depression when I was 14, and people didn't talk about mental health in general, let alone mental health in the church in the noughties. It just wasn't a done thing. And I didn't really have any concept of it until I just cried all the time. At church, I sobbed through every single service. My poor youth leader just handed me tissues because he was like, he was a trainee youth worker as well. He was brilliant, but he was not prepared to be faced with, a 14-year-old girl who was developing a mental illness that she didn't understand, and he didn't really understand either. So it was great. And then I kind of out of the depression, I started to self-harm. And when I was 16, I tried to take my own life twice. And I was admitted to a mental health ward for one night, an adult mental health ward, when I was 16 in the noughties. So it was every bit as grim as you can imagine. And it was so loud. And my mum passed my iPod shuffle to me, and I just pressed play on a sermon my pastor had given, and it was on John chapter 1 and kind of the Word becoming flesh and God having a human face in Jesus for us. And I had these really clear words from God that said, we've got to shine in here. And I was like, great, thanks. That doesn't help me now. But that shaped the rest of my life, actually. Those words have shaped the rest of my life. And I was really well for my 20s. I absolutely loved university. I stayed on and did a master's looking at the pastoral theology of clinical depression, because clearly I really enjoy the fun, light-hearted things of life. Sometimes I do just look back and think, my life is ridiculous. And I got married and I had a son, and I was really, really well. And then it was the year after the pandemic started, so kind of after all of the lockdowns, when we had a vague resemblance of normality again, and I just fell apart, and I deteriorated very rapidly and ended up just not really being able to function, which is not helpful when you have a job and a child and a house to run. So, I spent kind of over the following couple of years, I spent 12 months going to a day hospital, which is possibly the best mental health facility ever. And it was characterised by some of the kindest mental health nurses I've ever known, certainly. that it's in those kind of 3 years I've had ECT. I'm having ECT, kind of maintenance ECT at the moment, and I am learning to live a life that doesn't look anything like I imagined. Is a lot more limited than I imagined. And I was thinking about this the other day. I am officially disabled, if there is an official thing that makes that. But my own self-stigma, I guess you'd call it, I really shy away from it. I'm like, oh, no. I expect myself to act as if I'm not.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. Which is really not very helpful. But throughout kind of all of it, this time around, all of my work before had been around where is God when it hurts, or, spent my working life asking that question. But actually for the first time in these last few years, I questioned absolutely everything in life and about life in the last couple of years. But that's the one thing that's been stable.
Yeah.
And that God has been... God's always there, but I have felt that God is there throughout all of it. And that it has been a huge gift.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make it easier in any way, really. But it's been like a drumbeat, I think, through it, which has enabled me to have something to hold on to.
Yeah.
Even when it didn't really feel like I had anything else to hold on to, despite having, an amazing family, amazing friends, great church. Nothing else could touch me. But the love of God is what has sustained me in ways that I really can't explain.
Yeah. And was that different to your experience when you were younger then?
Yeah, when I was younger, it was a lot of, God, where are you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
This is not how I thought life would be. All my friends were, as I was getting ill, all my friends were becoming Christians. They were all going to Christian festivals, which I didn't go to because they involved camping, which I camped once. The waterproof layer stuck to the non-waterproof layer, and never again.
I
just
hate
no.
camping.
No.
I was a youth worker until I had children, and so there was a lot of enforced camping. And since then, I have never set foot in a tent. I don't think again.
No, I have not set foot in a tent since I was 14. I'm proud to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did we get onto the camping?
That's for Christian festivals.
Oh yeah, Christian festivals. So they were all kind of coming back from Christian festivals saying, I had an amazing time. The words of Delirious is, we're going to be history makers, was in the air, and it was like...
I think you and I are the same age, and so...
It was...
I think I was probably at those festivals.
It was kind of peak Christian teenage subculture, I think. And I was at home kind of thinking what I felt like, and I remember feeling like this, but I felt like the older brother in the story of the prodigal son. I was like, all my friends are having these like amazing experiences with God and kind of coming back to him. And I didn't do the teenage rebellion thing. And so I came back. They were coming back and, had these amazing stories to tell. And I was like, I've been here all the time. Where are you? What are you doing? This isn't how it was meant to go. And although actually my church, the minister of my church, was vehemently anti-prosperity gospel and was kind of spoke into kind of that narrative a lot, and would kind of constantly say that, you know, God is with us, but he's not going to make life happy and shiny. The rest of everything around in Christianity at the time was, you know, you come to Jesus, you become a Christian, life gets better. You're healed, you know, something amazing will happen, and that's, you're set for life. And that was, I was like, well, I became a Christian at 5, and actually life just got steadily worse. So I'm not really sure how that works.
No, and the evidence is pointing elsewhere.
Yeah.
What does that do? Yeah.
And I was really angry, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was lamenting, because I was just cross at God.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand, I mean, I still don't really understand what he was doing, or why he was allowing stuff. But I didn't turn away. I just shared those feelings with God, in lots of very, I used to write some songs, so some quite badly written songs, and a very angst-filled hardback A4 pink diary, which I still have, from W.H. Smith. I remember going in to choose it, and I remember I have such a clear memory of going to buy it, and I had no concept that actually what it would be a written account of my mental illness.
Yeah.
You know, I obviously had no concept of that. And actually, you know, that diary became the base of a book, which again is also very strange.
Yeah, amazing though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember going through, I didn't ever have the kind of dedication to journal, but if you go through my main Bible that's been with me most of my life, if you go into Job, half of Job is filled up with these really like aggressive annotations.
That's amazing.
Why? What the heck? Why would he even say that? And then it gets to the point where, because Job is quite long.
Job is long.
Clearly got bored and gave up or fell asleep and just sort of cuts off in the middle.
I mean, it's understandable, isn't it? That's Job. Well, and also a lot of the book of Job is Job's friends just being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And saying the very worst things to a suffering person you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
So I can understand that.
Yeah.
I didn't actually read Job until I think I was at uni, maybe. I think I read it for an essay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. The Psalms were my prayer book.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just fell in love with them, and I think they helped me because they are so searingly honest about how rubbish life can be, and yet they talk about how good God is.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I think it's Tim Keller who said that, you know, of all the religions in the whole world, Christianity is the only one in which you can yell at God, and that'd be okay. And if I'm a Christian for one reason, it's that. It's that, you know, God doesn't expect our perfection or our polished performances. He just wants us in whatever state we might be at that time. And
one of my lecturers, when we were doing the Old Testament, he was talking about the book of Lamentations. He was saying how in a covenant relationship you have this right to reply to God, and that's okay, and that's safe to do. And I think with any relationship, even with like your most closest honest relationships, there's still kind of, the other person is dealing with, you can be honest with them and deal with you, but then they're also then having to process it in their own way and dealing with their own stuff. But in that relationship with God is the only one you can just go,
here we are.
Here's all my things and here's all my feelings, and you're big enough to take it. And
And I still find it astounding, frustrating, but both that, you know, Lamentations is a whole book in the Bible, and yet the the most commonly quoted verse is the only one that is like, and yet I will, praise you, I will, God is good. And then it kind of just clicks right back into, but actually life's really awful and you've abandoned us and why are you doing this? And I would love to see our churches be places where people can be honest and didn't feel the need to present their Sunday best. That is my dream for the church.
What's been your experience of church in regards to that?
And actually, I have been incredibly fortunate in that, the church I grew up in was like that. And I think because I was so young, I didn't really know that there was any other way to be a Christian.
Yeah.
So I loved church before I loved Jesus, I think, in all honesty.
Yeah.
And it was my safe place, it was my home. And so it made complete sense to me, therefore, I spent 2 weeks crying solidly, and then I just cried on Sundays or weekends at the church. And I'd walk into church and I'd start crying, and I wouldn't stop until I left. And then that would kind of be like my thing for the week. And then I'd go back into school. That and the head of year 11 was an absolute lioness for her year 11. So she was always the head of year 11.
Yeah.
She didn't move with them. And she, before we started recording, we were talking about Friends. Yeah. And when I was really struggling, she had this thing once a day, if I needed it, I could go and watch one episode of Friends in her office.
Wow.
And I didn't have to do it every day, but knowing that was there was such a huge help. And actually, it was, I think, being ill, I've learned lots of different ways in which God is our sanctuary, and that sometimes we experience God as our sanctuary in church, and sometimes it's in a really quite squished office in a school in Essex when you're watching Friends. And even before that, actually, my favourite place when I was growing up was the gap between my bed and the radiator, and I used to put a blanket over the top and read there, and that was my little bit. And I think God gives us these spaces. And it certainly was in church. And then when I went to university, that became my sanctuary. I was back there this weekend, and it's like my soul exhales and goes, this is home. As much as obviously my home with my husband and son and my family is my home, but there is something about those years for me were so transformative and so happy that it's going home. And actually every church I've been to there's been a real awareness of allowing the kind of whole spectrum of emotions. One was Will van der Hart, was my vicar for quite a few years, and he was one of the first people to start talking about mental health in churches. So that made sense. That was good. But and I think I have made a conscious effort to be that person. And when you've written a book on depression and suicide, people kind of expect it from you anyway. So that is my job in life, to talk about hard, quite sad things in places that perhaps would shy away from it, I guess.
Yeah. How have you found doing your job and maybe being that person, people know you as that person who talks about mental health, or maybe they're drawn to you to when you're dealing with your own mental health? Because you said it's kind of, you had a good patch and then you declined a bit, and how's that been?
I think I think because we moved churches when my son was about 1, because we had been travelling all the way about half an hour to church, and it just got really annoying because we had a baby and nap times.
Yeah.
So we moved to our local church, and whilst people know my job, they mainly know me as his mum.
Yeah.
And so kind of that's, my job is a bit more separate.
Okay. That's good.
And I've done a lot more writing and a lot less travelling around and speaking in churches than I did in my 20s, which I think is quite natural anyway. My son would not be impressed if I just skittered off every weekend. And so, yeah, I think... And my books have changed as well. So it's, whereas the first is very much about my experience of mental illness, my second book is less so. So my speaking and stuff around it there is a little bit of distance. So I think it's been well planned by God. Thank you. I appreciate it. Because I think I would have found it a lot harder to be, that person in the last couple of years. And also, to be fair as well, for a long time, I couldn't go to church. It was too loud. There were too many people. And for quite a lot of the time that I spent at the day hospital, I was going there 7 days a week. So I just wasn't around.
Yeah. How has it been being a mother and managing your mental health?
Probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my whole life. The fear of what my illness does and how it affects him, and we can put everything in place possible to shield him from it, but we're equally honest with him, because I think that's really important, and he knows that Mummy has depression and that makes Mummy sad and tired, and those are his that's his understanding of it.
Yeah.
And I find it really difficult now, because he has no memory of the year, his first year in which we were together all the time, because my husband is amazing and does a lot.
Yeah.
And he has no concept of that once upon a time I did all of those things all the time too.
Yeah.
Because in his living memory, that's not, in the last 3 years, he probably only really remembers 3 years, and that's, that's, Mummy hasn't been around in the way that I would have liked to be.
Yeah.
And so I feel a lot of grief for the motherhood I dreamed I would have, I think. And everyone always wants their child to have the most perfect, carefree childhood.
Yeah.
And when you are, not because it's my fault, but when you are the reason that it isn't, and that he understands things that lots of 6-year-olds wouldn't, it's hard.
Yeah.
I try really hard to trust God with him, and be like, you gave us this child to parent, so you better get us through it. That's my main attitude. The glimpse to my prayer life there. But yeah, it's like, you gave us the gift of him. It doesn't always feel like a gift. He's just had chicken pox. That's not really a gift.
Chicken pox is no gift.
No. Get the vaccine. That's my advice to anyone in life.
Yeah.
Sorry, side note. But yeah, it makes it harder, because and it's meant that there's certain standards, I guess, I have for myself that and it's easier now that he's at school and wraparound care and stuff like that, but Mummy cooks dinner, and my husband and I take it in turns to do bedtime, and they're the things that I really hold myself to, because they are the things that he expects of me. And I do reading and spellings with him.
Yeah.
And my husband does maths. I mean, that would have been the case anyway.
Yeah.
Because my husband is dyslexic and I can't count for toffee. So that would always, that division of labour was always going to be the case.
Yeah.
But it is hard. And
Yeah. It's, I think for me anyways, it's been like, I've never had to dig so deep when managing my mental health and my children. And that layer of guilt that's just constantly there.
Yeah.
I grew up with a mum who had depression, and it kind of like when you're saying about your son understands, and I think that was for me as well. And that was actually a real gift for me, because although I knew other people, you know, it was very like, it's rare that my mum had depression, and she saw a therapist and like all this stuff. But then it meant that my awareness of mental health was so much better. And when I had my own problems, it was the done thing that you talk about it, you go to the doctor, you go, you know. And so that was actually a real blessing. But I remember my mum must have been exhausted, but their bedroom was downstairs and she was often like in bed, but it was always a thing that you could just go and sit in bed with mum and she'd have a cup of tea and I'd have a juice or something, like in that kind of, it was like an open door policy, but it was like you could just go and get into bed. And so I sort of, especially with my last pregnancy, because my mental health goes really far down in pregnancy, and so with my older two, it was always like, I remember Flora saying, "Mummy, you're always in bed." It's like, yeah, at the moment, like, but you know, come and we'll do bedtime stories in my bed, and we'll, you know, come and have a snuggle in my bed, like that kind of, just do what you can.
My son has recently got into the Mr. Men books. And we were reading Mr. Lazy, who obviously spends all day. And he was like, "Oh, that's like you, Mummy." And there was no judgment in that at all.
Yeah.
Because that's just his reality. And my husband, bless him, was like, "No, but Mummy's poorly. Like, she doesn't just not do things because she doesn't fancy it." And it's funny, isn't it, how the power of those words that children obviously have absolutely no comprehension of are razor sharp.
Yeah. Straight to the heart.
Yeah.
Oh, bless them. Yeah. You touched a little bit on Lament, and your second book is all about that, isn't it? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yes, so it came out in 2021. Yes. And I wrote it in lockdown, basically. My husband's a teacher, so particularly in the lockdown that you had no childcare, he also didn't have to teach live. Oh, okay. So he would do all of his work in the mornings and the evenings. And then because I have quite bad asthma, so I was kind of I was shielding for the first bit. He then would take our son out for the afternoon, and I would write. And what I've found is every time I'm writing a book, God kind of plants the seed for the next one. And it was, as I was writing my first book, that I was like, the answer to mental illness for Christians is lament. Like, I personally don't feel like anything else comes close to, if someone asks me what's the Christian response to mental illness, I would say lament is. And as it happened, 2020 provided the whole world with a lot of reason to lament. And so writing that came quite naturally, actually, because and also, it was a searing hot summer, but because everything stopped, I noticed I'm an indoors person. I have hay fever, I have asthma. I don't like going outdoors, okay? I like flowers, pretty things, but I'd never really noticed the seasons. But having a son who definitely does need to go outside every day, and then kind of watching the world in 2020, that sense of actually God gives us the seasons, and God gives us the liturgical church year seasons to learn how to lament, I think. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about actually is that if you learn to lament when you don't need it, it's so much easier than to use it when you do need it, rather than a kind of sudden panic. If your whole kind of Christian life has never engaged with pain, it's so much harder to then have to ask the difficult questions.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, I think if you in Advent you slow down, and Advent notices the dark.
Yeah.
And it says it's really, really dark, but the light is coming in it, and it kind of teaches you how to. And Lent is about lament. Basically, it's that the Holy Week, and the emotions of Holy Week in particular. When you break it down, Holy Week shows us how to bring almost every emotion to God.
Yeah.
And I believe really passionately that it's important that our churches and our Christian culture engages with that, so that we are able to know how to do it when we really need to. Because I think, we will all get to a point where we have to go, God, I don't get this. It hurts, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
And it's something actually I've been trying to teach our 6-year-old a little bit, being like, if he's really cross, I'm like, you can tell God.
Yeah.
You can stamp your feet and tell God. That's okay. As always, any parent will, or anyone who's looked after a young child, they might recognise the sentence, it's okay to feel angry, it's not okay to hit, punch, fill the blank. And that, but that's kind of a huge part of our, the way we parent, actually, and that has helped. It doesn't stop tantrums, sadly. That's not a golden bullet. I don't think there is one.
There isn't, no.
But I do hope that it means that he will understand his emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's okay. Like, I found that when they kind of, all children tend to get to that stage where they go, oh, like, I'm really anxious that you're going to die. And you're like, oh, well, I will at some point. And kind of that helping them to not, well, I guess it's natural to fear death, but to go, well, if that happens, you'll be really sad, and that's not going to feel nice. But you might start, one day you'll start to feel a little bit better, and you always miss, that they're just trying to, the responsibility, I think, of trying to teach children how to handle different emotions. Because I think that was the thing. It was always I thought that you just had to try and somehow make things okay. And if you tried hard enough, or did something, or prayed, it would, that would mean it wouldn't happen.
It would make it
okay.
better.
But then, so it wasn't taught to actually deal with sadness or, any other emotion really, apart from being happy.
Yeah. And part of writing And Yet is that actually the path to, the joy that we're promised in Jesus, joy isn't happiness.
Yeah.
Happiness, the word happiness is rooted in happenstance. So it's chance.
Yeah.
We're happy when stuff is good. No one expects you to be happy when stuff is sad.
Yeah.
But what Scripture tells us, what the gospel tells us, is actually joy is different. Joy doesn't always feel good.
Yeah.
But joy is the knowledge that we are loved above and beyond anything we can understand. And because we are loved, we can lament. It's that thing of, our children, people tell you that it's really good if your child only explodes and has the worst tantrums at home. Apparently that's a good sign.
Yeah.
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 Apparently that's a good sign.
Apparently. Yeah.
Let's just, it is a good sign. I'm just going to...
It's a good sign. Doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't really, does it? It really doesn't, does it?
No. You like, tell this to the bite marks on my arm.
Yes. All the joys.
You're talking about knowing that you're loved, and I have had the privilege of being able to read a sample of your book that's coming out very soon, and that is all about that. So would you share a little bit about that? Because I'm very excited
Thank you.
to go through that next year.
I'm very excited about it, actually. So it's called Beloved is Where We Begin. I can take no credit for the title. It is a line from a poem by a poet called Jan Richardson. Her husband died, and she wrote a book of kind of poems and blessings called The Cure for Sorrow. And it's in there. I can't quite remember which one now. But over the past year, because I have felt so rooted in being loved by God, even though I couldn't really function as a human, it seemed, and actually as I was writing, and it was that, well, why can we lament? We can lament because we're loved.
Yeah.
You know, we can do have a metaphorical or literal tantrum to God because we are loved. And I think so often we have this real temptation to skip to the fall before we engage with creation's narrative.
Yeah.
We act as if the Christian story starts with Eve eating the fruit and everything going wrong.
Yeah.
That's not where it starts. It starts with God wanting to create humanity in his own image, and loving them enough to give them everything they needed, and loving them enough to, even when it all went wrong, loving them enough to clothe them as they had to go out into the big wide world. And I just think it's so important that, yes, that there are consequences for our actions. There always are going to be consequences for actions, but the mercy of God, that he covers their nakedness as they have to leave Eden, tells me that our God is one of love. And so really it's that journey, and it has been the strangest writing process on the planet. I wrote a lot of it at the day hospital. I wrote a lot of it around the days I wasn't having ECT, which meant that when I came to edit it, I couldn't act. One of the main side effects of ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, is memory loss. So when I came to edit it, it was like editing somebody else's work.
Amazing.
Because I had no memory of writing bits. And I was like, oh.
Were you impressed with what you saw?
Not always, but sometimes I was like, that's quite a nice sentence. So it was, I can only conclude from the strangest writing process in the world that this is something God wants people to hear.
Yeah.
That we are loved with an everlasting love, and that's where we begin.
Yeah.
Yes, we then, yes, we muck up. Yes, we do stupid things, and we're mean to ourselves and others, and the world is apparently on fire in so many ways. Yeah. But we are loved by God, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And again, I used the liturgical year in Andiet, and I did the same with Beloved is Where We Begin, in that I journey through it. It's a weekly devotional, because I heard of somebody who the only chance they could do a Bible reading every single day was by doing it on an app on the toilet. And I just was like, and I have also done that. And I was like, that's great. And actually, whatever you can get.
Habit stacking.
Yes, definitely. that. That's a mental image. Yes. But, you know, we can't all, you know, the traditional quiet time was designed in a different age.
Yeah.
And we can't all spend half an hour alone.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I
Love
spend a lot
being
of time
alone.
alone. We can't all spend half an hour alone in quiet every day. But I think most people will be able to carve out 15, 20 minutes once a week.
Yeah.
And I wrote it as well for, you know, people who have chronic illness who can't get to churches, but also for leaders who don't get a quiet time because or don't get the chance to hear a sermon because they're always preaching one.
Yeah.
And for the parents who spend their lives, you know, shushing babies in the back row or with half an eye on what's going on in creche because, you know.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make it accessible to hear that message of love. And also it's the easiest book of mine to market because the first is on depression and suicide, the second is on lament. So it's really nice to be like, buy this book for people, for Christmas, for birthdays, because it's on being beloved, because it's a bit weird to buy the others. For that case.
Yeah. They've got beautiful covers there.
They do have beautiful.
I think that was probably the first thing I said to you. I love the covers of your book.
I'm very, very lucky. And I asked them to like have a thread of, like, you don't get matching book covers in the Christian publishing world until you're like Tom Wright.
He's got loads.
Yeah, and then they'll like republish them and like do them all so they match.
Yeah.
So my request was, can there be like a thread that goes, so the kind of the blues and the golds are kind of my thing, and that makes me very happy.
It's very pleasing.
It is, yeah. I can't wait I should get a copy of it this month, and I'm very excited.
Like depression, but make it a little bit sparkly.
Exactly, lament, but make it gold.
Yeah.
My son loves my son is a magpie basically.
Yeah.
Anything shiny he's on, and so he loves my second book for that reason, because it has shiny gold teardrops on it.
It is so
And
nice.
he just thinks he's like, Mummy, it's so shiny. I'm like, yes.
A bit of gold foil makes everything better.
I am completely with you.
Just a little sprinkle.
Yeah, it's great.
We will link all your books in the show notes.
Thank you.
And when does Beloved is where we begin?
Comes on the 21st of August, so about 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, we're in
Oh,
July
that's
now,
not
aren't we?
long. Oh, that means I'm 35 this month.
I'm
not ready for that.
I think I stopped aging at about 25. I don't think I mentally went forward.
See, I felt in my head that I have been in my 30s since I was about 15.
The opposite.
So I'm actually just, like, this is the thing, everyone's like, oh, you know, I stopped. I'm like, no, I've been in my 30s for 20 years. Only now I look it and feel it physically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Aging, so fun. Just to finish, what would your advice be to anybody who is maybe struggling with mental illness? What's your like toolkit of advice that you would give?
So the first is always to go to your GP. That they are the portal for further help.
Yeah.
And it's just really important to have that conversation. If I think to make it easier, write down what you want to say beforehand. If worse comes to worse, just write down what you have to say and give it to your GP and go, this is what I need to say. I think the second thing is to remember that the stuff that cares for physical health cares for our mental health too. You know, the stuff that helps our mental well-being is, you know, eating vegetables on occasion, getting outside, moving our bodies. Like, it doesn't have to be dramatic. And actually, if you're really poorly, getting out and moving your body might be walking down the stairs to the front door.
Yeah.
For other people, not me, for other people it'll be doing a 10k.
Or me.
But it'll, you know, anything in between those two things and beyond.
Yeah.
It's doing what you can with what you have.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's remembering that our worth is not tied to our production. And I think that's such a countercultural message in the world. I mean, it probably always has been, but it definitely is now. And actually, if all you can do is survive, that's okay.
Yeah.
We live in this world where, you know, we see everyone's achievements all the time. You know, people will probably even look at, which is, I find weird to think of, but people look at me like, well, you've written books. I'm like, I've written books by the grace of God.
Yeah.
There's nothing outside of that. But it's just so important that we remember that we are not what we produce.
Yeah.
And give ourselves a break. Because I don't think we are very good at giving ourselves a break at all. And I think for churches as well, get stuck into Lament. But also, when you're supporting somebody who is struggling with mental illness, do the stuff that you would normally do. Do the meal rotas. Rather than saying, oh, let me know if there's anything I can do.
Yeah.
Say, here's what we can do.
specific.
Here's some options.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful if I picked your child up from school once a week for a play date? Or would it be helpful if... And when stuff's chronic, you know, I think generally speaking, we're really good at helping people when it's a short thing.
Yeah.
When someone's had a baby, we do a meal rota for 2 weeks. But at
2.5 if they're really popular.
But actually, I would advise, like, whether it's mental illness or chronic physical illness, say, you know, don't overcommit. You're not going to be able to provide them every meal for 3 months. But say, actually, what we can do is we can give you a meal once a week for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Next 3 months for other big churches. That's valuable. Helps with planning, helps with costs.
Yeah.
But it recognises that this isn't an overnight thing. But we're with you. Yeah. Having a fund at church for therapy. Because it may be that you go to the GP and they go, oh, great, you need some therapy. There are long waiting lists.
Yeah.
So actually, and it is expensive.
Yeah.
And so actually, having a mental health fund in your church where people can say, I've been told I need this therapy, this is the waiting list, I found this private therapist, this is the cost. Actually, if we can have that as a resource for people, it not only helps the individual, but I think it helps as a culture to recognise that mental illness is as valid as physical illness. I think we've got so much better at recognising mental health.
Yeah.
But I think we still have a really long way to go when it comes to facing the reality of mental illness and reality of chronic mental illness in particular. So I think those are probably my top tips.
Yeah.
Also, as a side note, preachers preach about the emotions that the people in the Bible were feeling. In almost every passage you can read in Scripture, the people had an emotion.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go massively into it, but talk about it.
Yeah.
Talk about the fact that Jonah was really cross like really cross. Jonah said to God, take my life, because he was so cross at God's mercy.
Yeah.
That's a human response. It's not a particularly attractive quality, but it's there. It's in the Bible, and let's not ignore it because it's awkward.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh no, it's been absolutely amazing. Thank you.